this reading is about Jon Benet Ramsey. I wanted to know what actually really happened because there's evidence that would point to the Ramseys, but they have just denied having anything to do with it or knowing what happened at all. I'm sure you are familiar with the story. She was found in the basement, and that was basically the last place that the parents looked. They didn't start in the basement. They didn't even check the basement before they called the cops. They didn't check everywhere in the house. And Pasty Ramsey's handwriting matched the letter that was written for ransom. Okay, so I was picking up that the Ramseys were having financial issues and their stability, and they're part of a church, and they needed money. And somebody in this church, it was one of the leaders of this church, offered the Ramseys some money. And I feel like John Ramsay is fairly absent in this reading because I think that he's only coming in as the emperor in this reading because I don't think he knew what Pasty was doing. And he is a Leo, and there was no King of Wands that came out. All the other kings came out except for Wands. So I'm getting that they had a financial nightmare on their hands, and the church, somebody at the church gave them an opportunity that was going to change their life and get rid of this old cycle and begin a new one. And I'm getting that Patsy, she looks very kind and warm, sweet when we see her speaking. But there's a Queen of Swords here who lost their stability during this nightmare. It was a nightmare. And basically, I think that Patsy was a cold-hearted bee, and she wanted to take this opportunity that this person at the church gave her. Now, I think that this person at the church might be an air sign. That's Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. So I feel like that she wanted to sell her child, and I feel like it's this person at the church saw them in this position and saw that they could take advantage of this possibly, so they were manipulative in their desire to help the Ramseys gain their stability. This person they took advantage of the Ramseys being in this hard position, and this church member wanted the Ramseys' child. And she was very cold-hearted when she started to think about the nightmare that they're living in with their finances, and that, they needed to do this to continue on their upward cycle in their life. They didn't want to go downward in finances. And I'm not sure if, somebody was a gambler and could have gambled the money away. But so I feel like this person who wanted Jon Benet felt like they were doing the wrong thing because they were using this child to get them to a higher place in their mind. I guess I don't even want to say closer to God, because that's totally opposite of what God would want. So it's delusional for this person to think that it's like a ritual. Who uses a child to get closer to God? And that's exactly the problem with the church. That's why I'm not a part of the church, but a lot of people have left the church because of that SA, that abusing minors. That's no joke. I see it. It looks right here. It's so delusional. With the Four of Cups, the High Priestess in Judgment. This person's like, I don't feel so well with life. I'm just, my life, it just doesn't feel very well. And I need to get more spiritual and closer to God. So I need a child in order to do so. That's sacrificial. So after this happened, after Jon Benet was used as this ritual, the Ramsays began to have to defend themselves. Always just, publicly, they even came to defend themselves with all kinds of different hosts. There's not that many videos of them speaking, but they did a few national news interviews. They needed a lot of strength to cover up this thing which they got away with. And by the way, I'm not saying that John isn't innocent. I'm just wondering why a King of Wands hasn't shown up. I could have done a reading with the entire deck and he would have eventually shown up, but so they realize now that they didn't win. It was delusional to think that they could get away with this and be happy and on their way to their new beginning. All their hopes and dreams, all that money having done them so much good. Actually, they ended up feeling like they didn't win. And I stopped the reading there, but I'm going to continue. And I know Burke did a show with Dr. Phil recently. I'm sure they paid him for that. And he smiled the entire time. And one thing that I found very strange is that the Ramsays, all three of them, at Jon Benet's funeral, just acted like they won the lottery. They were the only people smiling really big. Like, why are you this happy when you just lost the apple of your eye? Or should you be smiling with that glow? Okay, so let's do this thing. All right. So they realized they didn't win anything, actually. It's become very difficult to cover their tracks. It takes a lot of strength to cover those dirty tracks where all they wanted to do was benefit. And they realized they were delusional and nobody won. In fact, there's a sense of loss. I didn't even see this card when I was deciding I was going to say a sense of loss. It caused them a loss. That's all they feel now. So they were happy at the time when they got that money, but now they realize after all the money's gone, I'm sure. That's why Burke came on television to get some money. All right, so I'm not upset about it. He smiled the whole time, really big. Like, come on, man. We know that we don't all just have one emotion for, what was it, 30 minutes or something? Come on. Well, I feel like it's It's not easy to balance these days. They don't have a whole lot to get offered. They don't have a whole lot offered to them. It is extremely difficult to balance the family. And now that Patsy is dead, all that he has now, Jon Ramsey, is his son Burke, which may be the Page of Pentacles. Possibly, Burke was probably the only thing that kept them feeling like a family after that happened. I know there was talk about Burke maybe hurting her on accident in a way, like where they may have needed to end her life, but I'm just not seeing that. Ace of Swords. Okay, so they just had to start thinking in a whole new way. This was a whole new way of life for them. And they had to seriously balance their mental health. All they have is just enough. They still have enough to be happy, but their friends know that they're keeping secrets. So, yeah, their friends know. Their friends don't trust them. Now let's do that again. Just sloppy. Queen of Pentacles and Justice. Queen of Pentacles, Pasty Ramsay is a Capricorn, so she would be a Queen of Pentacles. And here's the word justice. I mean the card. Let me see. A little bit more. I feel like even the institution of the law knows Patsy was keeping secrets, but because of the church, it's possible that they're untouchable. Yeah, they usually are untouchable, aren't they? They seem to stay out of the courts. It just reminds me of, refreshes the feeling of when all that controversy began about the church falling apart. Well, they thought it was falling apart. A bunch of people leaving it because of the SA, the abusing of minors. It's just refreshing that feeling for me right now, seeing this. And the Tower. Tower. Yeah, there was no justice. Like, I don't even think the justice system can touch the church. Like, you try to touch the church, you're going to get burned. I don't know how that's possible, because I'm not part of church and I haven't studied about it long enough to know how police and churches interact or what they can get away with. But it seems like people these days, they like to work a lot with less pressure on themselves and do a lot less, be lazier these days. Ever since 9/11, I noticed that's when it began. No more pride in your work at that point, and not enough to give. That was a horrible time, loss for the entire world. Ten of Swords. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on that little rant about the war, but it just affected everybody, not just, the people fighting. Everybody's mental health was affected. Just knowing about that going on. The tower. Yeah, it's over. Like, injustice will never be served. Never. In that case. Never. You know what? I am not sure, but here's the Two of Cups. Is it possible that the church and the law are kind of one or work together? They're Two of Cups. They work together. They feed off of each other. I'm really not sure what the church can possibly give law enforcement. But who knows? People at the top make deals without anybody knowing. And the Ten of Wands. That must be a hard burden for them to carry. The cops having to deal with the church. Now we're getting into that, so we don't need to go on for very much longer. Oh, just because of their allegiance. They have to profess their allegiance to the church. So that's the manipulation, the stability. That's because of their allegiance to God. When the church uses God, that's why Jesus got very upset, was yelling. I heard he was angry at these people selling stuff in the church to make money. And he didn't think that was right. And that's the first bank, was the tithings for the Catholic Church in Rome. Tithings was the first bank. People's tithings to the church became a bank. I learned that in Catholic school. Why would they tell us that if they didn't want us to know? Why would they tell us that if they wanted us to know? So they're like homecoming to each other. They almost seem like they belong with each other. Moving away. Oh no, I don't think that the law enforcement can even touch the church. I think as soon as they step foot on the boundaries, they have to go away. It's just what I'm seeing in the picture. I just feel like there's losses all around from protecting the wrong people for so long. It's just caused loss after loss after loss. But whose life is it making better? It's not the right people. Well, I think that's probably enough for this reading today. Thank you.